Hello and welcome to Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you on your journey to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. And this is your host, Beck Milonas, High Priestess, Channel, and Activator. Join me on this series as I share reflections, insights, and channel transmissions from my journey of walking the initiation path. Each episode is a unique transmission containing supportive frequencies to facilitate the deepest healing, activation, and reconnection with your soul. I invite you to open your mind and set the intention to receive this episode into your heart space. Let's go. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode. Today, I am going to go a little bit left of field with what I'm sharing today. Not necessarily left of field, but I feel like some of this is stuff that many people wouldn't have a framework of understanding about. And so it's really exciting for me to be able to teach this. I actually had a conversation with a dear friend of mine in Bali yesterday, and I was sharing some of these concepts with him, and he was fucking blown away by some of the stuff that I was sharing. And I realized, oh my God, more people need to know about this stuff because it's really cool. And I only really got into this stuff about a year and a half ago when I realized I was, in fact, a grid worker and I understood what that meant. So today, I am going to be talking about grid work. I'm going to be talking about codes. I'm going to be talking about how we download and upload information into our own personal grid, how we upload and download information into the Earth's grid, about our own kundalini, our own internal kind of grid system with the chakra system, how this is all intertwined, interlinked, how the grid of our Earth has been, I suppose, infiltrated, or there have been codes placed within our grid, within our matrix to kind of constrain us, and how this goes back to kind of the beginnings of our species, the beginnings of our time, and all about pyramids and megaliths and ancient starseed wisdom, all of this really cool stuff. Like I said, it's going to be super esoteric with this one, a little bit out there, but I'm hoping by the end of it, you'll have a better understanding of what grid work is, what codes are, and how we can literally rewire our own kind of programming, I suppose, when we have knowledge of this stuff. So I suppose where do I want to start this? I want to start talking about the grid system of the Earth. So much like our body has a chakra system, or in the ancient Chinese kind of medicine path, it's a meridian system, right? So we have meridians, which are energy kind of portals or points, pressure points on our body. If you see an acupuncture chart, there's all these points like dots on someone's body. And for instance, there's a dot on your knee that's linked to your liver, and there's a dot on your here that's linked to somewhere else in your body, right? I'm not super familiar with acupuncture, right? But there are different points. There's a grief point in here somewhere in your chest. There are different points, meridian points, that impact or influence the flow of energy through your body. In the same way, we have our chakra system. So we have our energy centers. So there's some chakra systems which have more than I think it's 8. I can't, my counting is really bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. More than 7 chakras. I'm going to go on the basic 7 chakra system because that's the one that most people know. So you have your root, your sacral, your solar plexus, your heart, your throat, third eye, and your crown, right? Some people say that there's a soul star, which is above our kind of crown, and then there's an earth star, which is below our feet. Many other different chakra systems have many different chakras, and I know that there are more than that because I've discovered them, but that's not kind of where I'm going with this today. We're not getting too deep into chakras. I more want to get into the point of what I'm trying to say with all of this, which is we have this flow of the life force energy, which moves through our body, kundalini, Shakti, life force, right? This flows through our body through the chakra system. If there is a blockage in one of our chakras, the Kundalini cannot flow past that chakra. So, for instance, if you have a blockage in your solar plexus, the Kundalini cannot flow beyond the my God, like what's below this whole plexus, my brain? The sacral upwards, right? And you want your kundalini to be able to flow from the base, which is Shakti, feminine energy, to the crown, which is Shiva, consciousness. So you want the feminine to be able to meet the masculine, to then come into divine union and come into union with the universe, with God, with everything that is, right? So if you have a blockage in one of your chakras, that energy cannot flow freely through your body. In the same way that we have our own internal chakra system for this life force energy, the earth, our planet, Gaia, Mama Earth, has her own chakra system. And these are the ley lines of energy, the grid, the planetary grid, right? So they are ley lines across the earth of this flowing energy. And there are certain points, they're like pressure points or chakras that the earth has in different places. So, for instance, in Uluru, that's considered the solar plexus of the earth. In I think it's Glastonbury or somewhere in England, it's the heart chakra. What else? There's I think it's the root in Mount Shasta. So there are different, I could be wrong on all of those. I'm pretty sure those are the ones, but there are different points in the earth which have these portals for this energy, or they are considered the different chakras for the earth. There are also some really powerful points where these ley lines meet. So, for instance, Bali and Peru are the only two places where the feminine and the masculine dragon line or snake line, these ley lines in the earth, the feminine one and the masculine one, cross. And what happens at this crossing is it is a huge, powerful amplification and purification portal. So Bali is a completely magical place, and Peru is kind of similar. And people often get called there to release and clear their karma. It's a fucking massive amplification portal. A lot of portal workers get called there too, or healers, because they can use that portal to then impact other areas, right? So you get called to this place because the energy is, that's what this portal is for. That's what this energy is for. It enhances and amplifies that energy. So in any of these spots, that energy or the quality of that chakra is going to be enhanced. So for instance, Uluru, solar plexus, all the themes and issues with the solar plexus will be enhanced and amplified there. Same as the heart, wherever other places there are. The third eye, I think, is in Egypt. Correct me if I'm wrong, could be incorrect, right? And in our ancient cultures, those who were here since the dawn of time, the ones who built the pyramids, the megalith structures, Stonehenge, all of these places, they had information and knowledge from the stars, from our ancient galactic forefathers and mothers, of this esoteric wisdom, of this ancient wisdom and knowledge, in how to tap into that flow of energy, the Earth's life force energy, to not only amplify their intentions or what they're creating, but to tap themselves in with their own life force, right? So pyramids, for instance, the structure of a pyramid is in itself, it's kind of like this amplification shape or portal, right? And in the pyramid, it's very tactically built so that portal of energy can be then kind of expanded and pushed out. So these pyramids were created to maximize that energy, and they were created in really specific points on the grid where that energy is at its fullest or its most powerful or whatever that is, right? And so they were placed, and they were also placed very tactically in certain places where there were galactic portals, where, for instance, if tapping into this point in the grid, you can open a portal and access frequencies from other dimensions, so from other star races. This enabled interdimensional travel. It enabled codes from those races to come through, ancient wisdom and esoteric knowledge to come through and stream through these portals, right? And our the codes that we have here aren't as advanced as they have in other intergalactic races. We'll talk about this in a bit. We're going to come back to this. But these places that were very tactically, that we were told this is where you need to place them. Here is a cat. Hi, Benny. A black cat, like a witch. He's not mine. He's my sister's, but he's beautiful. We were told you need to place them here, here, and here because there's this certain alignment with the stars here. There's this energy portal here. There's this kind of flavor of energy here, right? And so we receive that wisdom and knowledge and where to place them. Our ancient forefathers were given that wisdom and knowledge by, galactic beings who are here seeding us, who are here assisting humanity to have this wisdom and knowledge, right? So they were teaching us not only to access these points in the earth, but to access our own kundalini within us, because that kundalini opens and activates our divine DNA. It opens our 12 strand plus, I think there's more strands than that, but our 12 strands of DNA, which enables us to have superhuman capabilities to do, healing, telepathy, to channel the divine in this way. So it enables us to contact and awaken our junk DNA, our strands of DNA, which most scientists will say are junk. They are not. They are our galactic DNA, our kundalini life force, the information coded within us from the races who seeded us, right? Because humans were I want to say an experiment of a bunch of different races, galactic races coming together and playing and modifying our genetics to create the human race based on a bunch of them for their longevity, for the experimentation and expansion of the universe for various reasons, which I'm not going to get into today. So we actually have their DNA within us, right? It's coded within us. And for many of us, it's dormant, it's not awake. When we can begin to awaken our Kundalini, that stuff starts to come online, our divine DNA, our galactic DNA, all of this information and coding within our bodies on how to do things like channel, how to do things like create from matter, create from thought into matter, all of these things like manipulate time and energy, move these massive pieces of rock that then became megalithic structures with our minds, all sorts of crazy shit, amazing galactic stuff. It's actually within us. Our body knows how to self-heal with this divine DNA. Our body knows how to do so many incredible things when we awaken this DNA or this knowledge within us, which is actually, it's not even coming from the galactic races, it's coming from source, right? It's like God consciousness, Christ consciousness. And that's kind of what Jesus's original teachings are about. It's about activating that creator source within us. He's saying all of these miracles that I do, you can do them too, right? I'm not any different to you. I'm just accessing this kundalini within me. I'm accessing this wisdom within me, and I'm waking it up with my thought, with my intention. I'm able to literally change water into wine or fish into bread or whatever. Can't remember, but do all these things, these miracles, right? Kind of got off track, but that's what these pyramids and these megaliths were placed there for us to be able to tap into this energy from the earth, right? And so within these grids, within this energy that flows through the earth and flows through our body, there is something called codes, and codes are simply information, right? If you take a atom down and you just keep deconstructing it, deconstructing and deconstructing and deconstructing, it's just energy. And energy contains frequency, which is information, right? So at the smallest fragment or essence possible, everything is just information. It is frequency, it is knowledge, it is wisdom. And a code is simply information that can be accessed or awakened or downloaded or uploaded, right? So within our Earth planetary system, we had a lot of these ancient civilizations who coded all of this esoteric wisdom and knowledge into the codes of how to do this kind of how to manifest, how to heal our bodies, how to work with the earth, how to do X, Y, Z, right? Galactic information, source information. And over time, what happened was as our kind of race began to move into slavery by some beings. And again, I don't really want to get into this because I don't want to pay too much information or an energy, sorry, not information into this. There were some beings who wanted humans to be enslaved. And so they put their own kind of codes within the grid and they hijacked our grid. And if you look back at Atlantis, I did speak about this once before. I think it was on another podcast, not this podcast. The reason why Atlantis fell, right, was because we had reached a point in civilization where we were very aware of how to use these grids, how to use free energy, how to manipulate matter, form, all this stuff, right? We were very aware of all this ancient esoteric wisdom and knowledge, and we had technology to be able to do it. But what happened was there were factions within that community, the leaders, who became very self serving, right? They lost sight of service to others, of humanity, and they lost some of their humanity and they thought of themselves as gods with all this wisdom and all of this knowledge. We are creators, we are like God, but we are not God, right? We are not the one only and only creator. Yes, we are a fractal of source. And if you take a bucket of water out of the ocean, is it still the ocean? Of course it is. So we are God, right? That's a paradox. We are God, but we're also not the creator. So these beings believed that they were gods, believed that they were better than everyone else, and what happened was ego. And so they decided to then use this knowledge and this wisdom and this power they had over the grid system, over all of this ancient esoteric wisdom and knowledge and their technology, to enslave other humans. And so what they did essentially was they hacked into, or they had these like pyramids that were placed in all different places on major energy portals, and they were pulsing out information or codes to then be uploaded by the people in different places that weren't in their central kind of hub, that made them sway towards the beliefs, ideals, and desires of that main faction, right? So they wanted to kind of control them in this way. And what happened was some of those portal points, or some of those points on that grid, had actually gone offline for some reason. I can't tell you why, but they'd gone offline. And when they then sent this huge pulse of energy from the central pyramid into all of the other pyramids, because those pyramids were shut down, so they weren't taking in that information, all of those energy pulses came back and basically caused a huge explosion of energy, and it fried the entire grid. And not only that, but it created a huge pole shift, which then created the event, which is the flooding. So that's my perception of what happened in Atlantis. It's a kind of offbeat, very different perception of what you might have heard, but I have memories of being a priestess in one of these temples. And what I was doing in this temple was I was basically acting as like this pressure point or acupuncture point for the energy to flow through my body from the earth. So I was opening these portals or these grid points in the earth, having that energy flow through me. And it was almost like a machine. So I've had visions of this machine like kind of structure that my body was creating, and then the pyramid was amplifying that energy out, right? So I was used for this experiment, for this thing that happened, and I carried a lot of guilt and shame around that because I felt responsible for what had happened in Atlantis. Complete different story, something that I don't really want to get into today, but it was this use of this energy, the use of these pressure points of this grid, that then eventually caused that whole grid to shut down, that caused Atlantis to go under, all of the things that happened, right? And so there have been factions of the government control, the system, people who are here to enslave us, who have learnt how to tap into these grids and to use this energy to essentially benefit themselves. They've used this energy flow to amplify their own desires, their own agendas, whatever it is. And so what they've done is essentially created coding, which they've then placed into these grids, information, conditioning, slave codes, whatever you want to call it, which are pumped out through the field and which are essentially keeping people small, asleep, in slavery, keeping them from expanding their minds, keeping them from desiring more, keeping them from distracted from the truth, keeping them from awakening their own healing capabilities, right? And then you see this agenda played out in, big pharma, in the food industry, in the financial, in all of the industries, mimics this coding that has been placed within our field on a frequency and energetic level, right? They literally shut down aspects of our DNA through this coding system and in our own bodies through breeding and so on and so forth, right? So these grids were used in a way to upload coding into our field, which is not necessarily pure. It is not serving creation. It's not serving source. It's not serving our divine nature. And we have been uploading these or downloading these, I suppose, this entire time. And what's been happening is that as more people awaken, as more people come here to bring kind of like codes from other places and teach on this stuff, people's codes are coming online from other places. People's divine DNA is waking up, their kundalini is waking up. And there's been a lot of repair on the earth grid for the past, I don't even know how long, a long time, to bring back online the information within our grid from ancient civilizations, right? Where they had this esoteric wisdom and knowledge. So the ancient Egypt grid has been brought back online. In Maya, I was actually in Mexico bringing back some of the, oh, my whole body, bringing back some of the codes from the Mayan traditions in Mexico when I was there. Something that's also happening is that there are light workers or portal workers or energy workers or grid workers. Again, this has been myself. It's not something that I do a lot of the time, but we get called to go to certain places on the grid where there has been trauma or there has been blockages that have been formed there. So, for instance, ancestral trauma, huge, like ethnic cleansing, sexual trauma, anything that's been done to the land or even to the land itself. So, like mining or bombing or places where that energy flow has been blocked. And we go there and we act sort of like an acupuncture point. So our body becomes this acupuncture point to then open up that grid point so the energy can start to flow again. Because, like emotion, like we need to release it. It needs to be released out of our body so it can then be released, I suppose is what I want to say. But so the energy can flow freely again. So we're called to certain points in the earth, not only to open and clear and cleanse that energy for the earth so the earth can heal, so people in that area can upload those codes or whatever it is, but also to share our own starseed codes from other places, our own light, our own information with those places of the earth. And it can be as simple as you being or being called to be in a certain spot on the earth. You are seeding an invisible pathway of light for those who come into that spot because it's energy, it's frequency, right? So you're not seeing that you're doing anything, but literally by the effect of you simply being in a space, your energy impacts that space. Perhaps the grids in the earth take on that energy. And then anyone who walks those same steps or comes into impact with that frequency, then it's almost like you've paved the way forward and then they're able to walk behind you, right? From the frequency that they're receiving. And I was talking to my friend yesterday because he wanted to release this whole thing with codes, and it's this whole beautiful program of a codes exchange that he wants to release. And I was explaining to him how many of us are uploading and sharing codes with people, or downloading codes from other people simply by being in their field, right? So I tell people, or I call myself an activator, and it's quite fucking profound what happens. And this is not me being egotistical. This is me just seeing and being able to see what happens and being told this by other healers and activators. What happens when someone comes into impact with my field? And that might be through a podcast like this. So if you've been listening to this and you've been having some pretty epic reactions or clearings or rememberings, it's because of this phenomenon I'm about to explain. People come into my field and they receive downloads or uploads of the coding that's already in my field that I'm embodying, right? So, for instance, something that I might be embodying is the divine feminine, right? So, because I'm embodying the aspects of the divine feminine, when you come into contact with me, you're going to upload what is available for you to upload if it's in your highest and you're willing and able to upload that around the divine feminine. You come into my field, you receive codes on compassion, self-compassion, self-love. Maybe there's some galactic codes. So maybe we share a similar, like past lives or whatever on different planets. And you've also been part of that race. And so by coming into contact with me or listening to me speak, there's frequency behind it, right? There's a frequency, there's something in my frequency which wakes you up. It wakes up those codes within you. And then you have the remembering of that information, of that knowledge, of those memories, of that wisdom, or whatever it is, right? And so it's like literally just coming into contact with someone's frequency, whether that's through spoken word, whether that's through a healing session, whether that's from just walking past where someone was who seeded these codes there. You're going to upload that information, right? And so that happens on our planet. So as we're walking this earth, we're uploading codes that sometimes we don't even want to upload, right? And so that's why it's really important to clear all of this fucking coding in our field from our parents, from our society, from our country, even where we've grown up, has a different like there's different coding within different places, different relationships to certain things, different paradigms, whatever that is. And we're constantly uploading and downloading this information. And so it's like, can you be tactical in and discerning in what it is that you're uploading and downloading? And for instance, if you desire to get better at something or to expand in some way, it's recognizing that you can learn by osmosis. So who are you putting yourself around, right? There's this thing in the coaching or mindset industry, which is really true. And it's like, you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most, right? So it's literally like, who are you fucking hanging out with? Because you're uploading codes from them all of the time. And if you're hanging out with people who are, they have some qualities that are really that are good. Like, so say you want to be successful and you want to assume the identity of a fucking millionaire. So you go and place yourself in the space, in the energy field, in the frequency of people who you admire, who are doing that already. And by osmosis, by literally receiving their codes, you are upgrading and uploading, right? And this is why we hang out with, or we contact, or we make contact with, or we channel or invite to co create with beings from other places. I'm talking about light beings, I'm talking about aliens, right? Because they have wisdom and knowledge and frameworks of understanding that far surpass our human framework for concepts, right? So, for instance, abundance, in the concept of some of the places that I've downloaded codes of abundance from, they see it completely differently to the way that humans do. For some races, like for instance, I'm pretty sure I think it was the Lyrans. I can't remember, but it was some race that I was tuning into their abundance codex, and it was like abundance to them was just like breathing, right? It was just natural. It just was. There was no need to control it. There was no need to hold on to it. And abundance was just natural for them, just simple, just encoded into their being. And so when you download codes from them, you are taking on that information. And of course, you then need to practice and embody that information. So, like, feel the energy of it and then embody that way of being. But you can download that information from other places, which helps you to expand. For instance, divine leadership. I've been working a lot with the Lyrans around divine leadership, and you would have seen. I'm not sure if it's before this or after. I'm pretty sure it's before this episode because I'm kind of doing them all in bulk right now. But there was a beautiful activation I did with Rhea Loveguard around divine abundance. Sorry, not divine abundance, divine leadership with the Lyrans, and they shared some codes. And Rhea was saying there is no human language to kind of get across what these codes are because they're frequency, right? So they're felt. It's a beingness. It's a feelingness. It's not something that you can conceptualize, right? So we come and work with these beings because they can download information for us that helps us to transcend our level of existence. Codes can be undownloaded, removed, right? So you can remove coding. A lot of the work that I do, the first phase of the work that I do in any of my containers is a huge slave decoding. So I remove them. I help them to remove themselves from any grids that they are locked into that are not serving them, that are limiting them, that are holding them back, right? There's also technologies like you can have seals and implants that are blocking that potential too, which have been placed into you. We remove all of that coding, and then I share with them new coding, and I help them to go to the places to access their own soul coding, because your soul has a codex which it is here to share, and it's going to be different to someone else's. We all have a very unique frequency codex based on the sum of all of our past lives, all of our experiences, all of the races that we've been a part of, all of the things that we have been, seen, done, has enabled us to have our own unique coding, right? And what that coding enables us to do is share that frequency with those who need those codes, right? So people who come to me often come to me because they want my rebirth codes. They want my ability to fucking just like die and be reborn and die and be reborn and go to the depths and then come up and excel, right? That's one of my codexes, is being able to go to these depths and then transcend, right? So when people are coming to me, I get a sense that they're either here to really just like remove and release all that karma and all of that bullshit and unpack and pull back and strip back. That's the first part. And then it's awakening this wisdom and knowledge from other places, awakening the memory of your soul and who your soul is and where your soul is from, and all of the ancient wisdom and knowledge that you came here to share from other places, where you had jobs doing things. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of, some people I've come into contact with when I'm downloading or sharing with them what their soul blueprint is, what their soul codex is. Recently I had a session with someone, and one of her soul fragments, or like simultaneous lifetimes, incarnations, was she was this soul somewhere. And I don't think she had a physical body, but she was one of the creators, one of the architects of our reality. And she was literally manipulating energy to create matter. So she was like creating plants and trees and beings and animals and creating things. So she has this frequency from that lifetime, right? From that codex of that simultaneous lifetime. She had these codes that wanted to come in for her in our session of being a divine creator, of literally manifesting from nothing, right? And this is a super fucking powerful thing for her to download because she was going through this kundalini activation, and the kundalini is that creative force, right? So it was like really cool for her to connect with that part of herself that had those codes, because she was here to share those codes with other people. So people who are coming into your space to work with you or even to just interact with you are coming into your space to exchange codes with you. And like I said, this can be something which is um, it's intentional. So it could be like you do a healing with me and you receive certain codes, or you listen to these transmissions with the intention of downloading codes. Or it could be literally like we have a conversation and that's it. Or you just pass me by on the street and that's it. Or you pass someone by on the street and that's it. Like you being in a space is impacting that space without you even realizing it, because of your codex, because of your energy. So if you feel like a failure because you feel like you're not doing more, because you're not serving in some way, just know that literally by being here, you are sharing codes, right? Literally by me going to these different places on the earth, just by being there and doing my own healing process, I was clearing whole fucking grids. And that grid point was then reaching out to other grid points, and it was creating this huge kind of like spider web impact on the planet. And so it's like we can have so much more reach and impact when we realize that it's what we're seeing, the physical is like one aspect of what's really going on because of these grids, because of how information is shared in our grid system, and because of the reach our frequency can have. And so, like I said, our soul codex can contain codes from other places, from other lifetimes. And it's our job to bring all of those aspects of our multidimensional self, of all of this wisdom and knowledge we have from different places, here into this now moment, because we perceive time to be non-linear, sorry, time to be linear. But in the quantum, it's non-linear, which means that you are experiencing your past lives, your present life, your future incarnations, your simultaneous incarnations on different planets and galaxies, and your first ever incarnation. All of it you are perceiving now, in the now moment, right? It's all stacked up on top of each other and it's all happening now, which means you can bring that stuff online really fucking quickly. It means that when you go into a past life and clear a past life, you're also clearing it from the now moment, any of that wounding and trauma within you. It means that when you remember that lifetime as a priestess or a healer or a shaman, you're bringing those gifts online now. It means that wisdom that you're accessing from an alien version of you is something that you can bring here now to use, because all of it is serving this current timeline, this incarnation, this shift that we're making as a humanity into the next evolution of our ascension, of the next iteration of humanity, of human beings, right? And all of these things can serve here and now, right? So my invitation for you is try and discern, like, what are my codes already that I'm sharing that are just things that are innately natural or easy to me. It's kind of like the soul purpose episode that we did, but we're looking at more as like, what are people going to receive from me just by being in my field? Maybe you're a really happy person and you've got some happiness codes, or like joy code. I have a friend, and just like joy, his pure joy, and every time I'm around him, I'm like, I feel good, right? So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's compassion, maybe it's forgiveness. I have another friend, definitely one of his codes is forgiveness, and he's here to share that codex with people just by embodying it, right? Because your codes are not something that you have to try and do or be. It's just who you innately are. And we all have different configurations and variations of these codes. So your codex, your soul codex, is so fucking unique to you. And it's so valuable to other people who need those codes. And you're going to have soul contracts with clients who have, you've literally got contracts where you've signed up, and it's like, at this point in your life, you're going to meet me and you're going to receive these codes of XYZ channeling, or compassion or forgiveness, or money, or whatever it is, right? You're going to receive these codes from me at this time, and it's going to help you on your journey. So understand that we have contracts with people to share certain wisdom and codes, and it's usually from the embodiment of us living in our truth, living our soul codex, sharing our soul codex with the world in whatever way that is, whether that's intentional or not intentional. It becomes really cool when you intentionally do this. So, for instance, at the start of every transmission, I say, hey, let me share any codes that anyone needs to receive, that they're ready in their highest to receive. Because that's the other thing. You can download a whole bunch of codes, right? And this is what happens for people, particularly when they get into the galactic work. They're like, give me all the codes, codes. But they don't actually take time to integrate and embody them, right? So they're just sitting kind of dormant in their field until you've integrated and embodied them as a way of being. Then they're not really active in your field, and they can sit there taking up space in your astral body, in your whatever spiritual body, but in your light body, until you really integrate them and embody them, then they're not active. The same thing is with all the light codes that are coming in at the moment, with all the solar flares and all of that stuff. Every time these solar flares happen, we receive upgrades on our field. We receive information, right? I feel it literally. And someone, I did an astrology reading, she was like, wow, I can see that, like, when you receive energy, there's like these codes streaming in, and it's this whole thing, and I receive it and I feel it viscerally in my body of energy streaming in, and I can feel the coding coming in. And sometimes I'm not sure what it is, and I have to sit with it and be like, what is this, right? She even said that it's in my chart. It's fucking nuts. If you don't believe in astrology, you really should like look into it, because I can't believe the accuracy of, oh my god, it was crazy, the depths. Anyway, that's a whole nother episode. I'm actually getting her on to speak because she was amazing. But I receive it like in my body when these light codes are streaming in, and then it takes a while to kind of sink in and integrate. And because of those new codes coming in, old codes are being purged, right? So old conditioning, old patterning, old places, or I'm being removed from certain grid points or anchor points or whatever it is that are no longer resonant with these new codes, right? So that is kind of what I wanted to share today. There's also a thing called a portal worker, which is, I don't know why I feel guided to talk about that as well, because I didn't know I was a portal worker or a gatekeeper until maybe a year and a half ago. And I used to think all this stuff was crazy. But these beings literally open kind of time space portals into different dimensions and bring that energy here now. So again, this is like for interspace travel, interdimensional travel. It can also be from bringing codes in or bringing energy in. It can be to clear stuff. So you open this portal into a black hole of nothingness and send things through that portal, opening the womb portal, right? And you get called to certain places to open these portals so that information can come in, so this earth sphere can upgrade. So that's really cool too. And maybe look into, if you're resident, I feel like one of you on here is a portal worker, and that's why I've been called to say that, because to me that was crazy. And also, like, please make sure that you're closing these portals when you're finished doing your work, because that's something that I learned. Like, I was doing all this work and opening all these portals and not then consciously closing them down after my session, and things were getting in through these portals that were not that just weren't serving. And so I had to, like, now at the end of every session, I make sure I shut down all portals or all access points to all other dimensions, and I send back anything which doesn't need to come through. So that is my rant for today. I hope it serves someone. I hope there is some wisdom and some knowledge in there, and we can really use these grids for our for our advantage to help amplify the energy. So even making a personal grid with crystals is one way of honoring this kind of energy. And that's what they're there for, to represent kind of this larger grid of this intention. And we can channel the energy through our body in the same way, where it's intentional to create. We're so fucking magical. We're so powerful. Like, this stuff just keeps getting more intricate and crazy and wild the further I go along this journey. But I hope that that serves you to at least understand what grid work is and understand the ley lines and grids of our planet. Until next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cracked Open. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend if this episode has served you in any way. For more information about the work that I do, or to get in touch with me, read the show notes or head to beckmylonis.com. Until next time, beautiful soul.